Have you ever wondered why you blush when you're embarrassed or why your hands can shake when you're nervous? Your brain has a lot to do with creating these sorts of physical symptoms and a lot to do with symptom relief, so with stopping those symptoms. It can be helpful to think of it as if you have a little person in your brain with a board in front of them with a whole bunch of buttons. And depending on what buttons this person presses depends how you feel on any given moment on any given day. So they might be like, nausea, on, pain, on, fatigue, on, nausea off, fatigue off. So our symptoms all have a purpose, and how you feel and how many symptoms you get or don't get is largely determined by what's happening up here. So in this video, I'm going to help you better understand what's happening here and show you how you have more control over these symptoms than you probably realize. From the placebo effect to the ancient roots of our stress response, we're going to cover how everyday emotions and other factors trigger physical reactions in your body and how understanding this and acting on this is a key component for many people to recover from conditions like CFS and Long Covid. And what I'm sharing here in this video is one lesson from my new course, Brain Retraining 101. It's been on the go for a really long time, and I'm so ridiculously excited and proud to have it live now and available to start immediately. And it would be so incredible to have you come join me there. There is a link in the video description if you're interested in joining or just simply want to learn more about it. All right, so we know that our brains cause physical symptoms. We see it every day. We get embarrassed and we blush. We get nervous and our palms get sweaty, or maybe our hands start to shake. We experience too much stress. We could get an ulcer. And also, if you remove yourself from a stressful situation, you can feel your shoulders relax. So the brain plays a massive role in both symptom creation and symptom relief. And the placebo is a great example of how powerful the brain's influence can be and how it can physically alter what's happening in the body based on contextual information alone. So misinterpreted contextual information, the placebo, signals the brain to heal the body. It's important to first understand and acknowledge that our brains cause a whole host of physical symptoms in our bodies every single day, and they also remove these symptoms. That they have this power is undeniable. To understand what's happening with at least some people with CFS and Long Covid, those with the functional illnesses that we discussed, we need to also understand why pain and suffering is necessary, and that our brain and nervous system uses pain and other unpleasant symptoms to keep us safe, to keep us alive. So, two key points here. Our brain and autonomic nervous system can cause physical symptoms, and they do this to keep us alive. Now, to understand why your brain and nervous system would make you feel sick, seemingly needlessly, we need to understand the environment in which our bodies evolved to thrive. I find this whole piece of it fascinating. So I want you right now to picture what life looked like for humans tens of thousands of years ago. So really take a moment right now to flesh this out in your mind and picture this environment, because this is the environment in which our bodies and brains evolved to thrive. Evolution is a process that usually occurs over very long time scales, often spanning thousands to millions of years. And for humans, significant evolutionary changes have historically taken place over tens of thousands to millions of years. So we humans evolve very slowly. The bodies we find ourselves in are built for a time when people's lifestyle was nomadic, with groups moving frequently to follow animal migrations and seasonal vegetation changes for food. There was a close relationship with the natural environment. Social structures were based on small, family-centered groups. So picture daily life, what it is now versus then. Then it involved hunting large animals It carried the risk of serious injury, and in a world without modern medical care, even a minor injury could become life-threatening if it became infected. And there were large predators. They were a major threat for us. These included saber-toothed tigers, hyenas, and other large carnivores that roamed the same territories as early humans did. And it's crazy to think about it this way, but humans at this time, at the time at which we evolved to thrive, we were not at the top of the food chain and had to be vigilant all of the time to avoid becoming prey. I don't know if you've ever watched any nature documentaries, typically with David Attenborough narrating in the background, but I actually find them quite stressful. And I look at how it seems like virtually every other species out there, aside from humans, spends the bulk of their time, their day, just trying to stay alive, trying to keep their offspring alive, trying to find food, trying not to get killed in the process, trying not to become food themselves. It is all based around survival. But us humans, we have dramatically and rapidly changed our environment and way of life. And in so many ways, we are safer, especially those of us in the developed world. And for us, our immediate survival is not a daily thing that we need to assess. We have modern medicine and vaccines and doctors who save lives. Just think about it. How many times a day is being eaten by another animal a serious worry for you right now? And although there are serious disparities with resources around the world, at least in most developed countries, we, for the most part, don't have to worry about hunting for food and not getting killed by a predator. But we also have all this other stuff that early humans never had. And these same brains now, today, that those early humans had then, need to assess threats that they were never designed to assess, or to assess things in general that they were never designed to assess. Because the internal threat assessment systems of an early human, which is the same threat assessment system that humans have now, such as those mediated by the amygdala and the limbic system and the autonomic nervous system, evolved to respond to the immediate tangible threats of what the environment presented tens of thousands of years ago. These systems are primed for a world vastly different from today's, and their adaptation to modern threats presents several challenges. For one, modern environments are full of intense and constant stimuli. We have bright lights, we have loud noises, we have fast-moving objects like cars and planes and machinery, and our brain adapted to a quieter, more natural environment and can thus interpret these stimuli as immediate threats, triggering excessive stress responses. We now also have abstract threats. Modern threats often take abstract forms like financial stress or legal issues or job insecurity. And these are not immediate physical threats, but because of the stress response we have to these things, our systems might still interpret them as physical dangers and react accordingly. So now Twitter or Reddit or your overflowing inbox or the daily news has become our saber-toothed tiger. And this constant activation of the stress responses to non-lethal threats can and does negatively impact our mental and our physical health. So in essence, an early human's internal threat assessment system, which is the same current internal threat assessment system we have now, while sophisticated for that time, it is completely mismatched for the complexities and the subtleties of modern life. So those responses, honed for immediate physical dangers and survival in a wild natural environment, often incorrectly assess danger in our modern world. Because in our modern day environment that looks nothing like the one that we evolved to thrive in, the nervous system has often inadvertently programmed itself into a hypersensitive, overprotective setting, which means it keeps producing increasingly painful responses to fairly normal stresses and stimuli. Essentially, there is a fault in our internal warning systems in that they were not designed for today. And your brain's priority is to keep you safe and alive. And it is doing that right now, essentially with an operating system that hasn't had an update in about 100,000 years. So Dr. Will Bostock, who I mentioned earlier, the doctor who's running the Long COVID clinic and was a guest on my channel, explained it like this. If we want to understand where a symptom is coming from, we need to understand what it's supposed to be doing when it's working properly. So we know symptoms are a warning system letting us know that we might be in danger. So here's an example from Dr. Bostock to help us visualize what's happening. So let's say in your car, the check oil light is on, but you check the oil and the oil is fine. So what is happening likely is that check oil light, that warning system, might actually be the issue. So the symptom, that warning is on, but the problem is with the warning, the symptom itself. It's bringing your attention to a problem or threat that doesn't exist. And when we translate this to an example with our bodies, let's say back pain, for example, in the absence of any structural damage, let's say all the x-rays and scans are clear, it might mean that instead of there being an actual structural problem with your back, the issue is with the warning system. The pain, the warning system, is where the problem is. So when this is happening, this of course doesn't mean that this is all in your head. If your check oil light is on, or if you have back pain or chronic fatigue, you're not imagining it, you're not hallucinating it, it's real. It's very much happening, but it's extremely helpful to know that despite these warning systems we are experiencing, these symptoms, our body is often safe and completely fine. We just need to reboot the warning system. So we need new approaches to eliminate symptoms that address our internal warning systems and teach them or rewire them by creating new neural pathways in the brain so that they respond appropriately to things that are not physical threats to our survival. And it's important to note that the severity of your symptoms is typically a very poor indicator of the severity of what's happening. Pain doesn't always mean that there's damage. Pain is your body's alarm system, but it can sometimes overreact, causing pain and unpleasant symptoms without any actual harm to your body. Someone else who's on my channel, Ben Ahrens, he is the founder of Retraining. He's been on my channel a couple times, actually, and he talks about what is happening here like this. He says that symptoms can start being triggered in the absence of physical danger or structural body damage when our allostatic load gets too high. So our allostatic load refers to the cumulative burden of chronic stress and life events. So when environmental changes exceed our individual ability to cope, then allostatic overload ensues. So there can be a buildup of stress and life events, childhood trauma, and other stressors, and at some point we eventually have the straw that breaks the camel's back. Something tips the scale and the total stress on the nervous system just becomes too high. So maybe we get a virus or exposure to mold, or we get in a car accident, or we lose a loved one. And our threat assessment system says enough and starts screaming at us with symptoms. So there's too much. The threats, which are modern day stressors, have been building up too much, and we've ignored all the emotions and all the milder warning systems. So your threat assessment system sends in the big guns. It shuts you down because the world is not a safe place for you to be. It can't be if you are this stressed and scared and anxious all of the time. This is what it is determined. So better to be stuck in your cave and alive and wait for the threats to pass. And in an attempt to keep you safe, your brain has put you in a timeout, a sort of immobile state in a safe place. And from here, unfortunately, as we see all the time with CFS and Long COVID, it can just get worse. There can be a downward spiral that happens when we start changing our response to symptoms. So a normal response to symptoms is fear. If you are on fire and are terrified of the burning sensation, that symptom, this is a good response. You're going to want to get out of the fire. But as Ben Aarons explained it, responding with fear to symptoms that were misfired, so not in response to actual danger, creates this downward spiral that can leave you bedbound. But your threat assessment system is still working, which is great. And we are meant to be able to handle stress. Stress is inevitable. The goal isn't to go through life without stress. Your system just needs a reboot. So it's about retraining your nervous system to feel safe, which involves new ways of thinking, understanding, and behaving. This might also involve making changes in your life to support this. So we are going to go through some brain training exercises to address this in the coming lessons. And we're also going to learn how to deal with what put you in this state in the first place. So you've just had a glimpse into Brain Retraining 101. It's not just a course. It is a carefully structured journey designed to be flexible and easy to follow and at your own pace. And whether you are able to watch videos right now or are only able to listen, either way, you're fine and you will get effective tools to start using on day one. This course is the culmination of so many different things and so many different sources of information. It is the result of my insights from my own decade-long battle with ME/CFS, and then finally fully recovering, from all of the research I did and time spent writing my book on CFS recovery, from researching and creating hundreds of videos on the topic for the channel here, plus conducting nearly 150 recovery interviews right here, and also talking to hundreds, if not thousands of people around the world who have told me what doesn't work for recovery, what does, and what an effective recovery program should look like. It's amazing to see that even some doctors now, they write to me and they tell me this, that they send their patients to my channel for recovery advice and recommend these methods that I teach in this course. So people have been asking me to start coaching or do a course for a really long time now, and I'm excited to finally be able to share all of this with you in Brain Retraining 101. And for the next 2 weeks from the date of this video, of when it airs, with the link in the video description, you can join the course at a special introductory rate. I hope to see you there. It's a new year, it's a new start. Let's do this together, and let's get you here on the channel sharing your own recovery story as soon as possible.